So officially, hello everybody, and welcome to today's webinar. The new ABM intent, key buyer signals are now contact level. Today, I'm very excited to announce Influ2's launch of Audience Scope, which is our new contact level intent signals designed to bring contact level clarity and actionable intent to your ABM program. So we have a lot of exciting information to share. There is a lot to unpack in that topic, and we have an amazing lineup of speakers that have joined us today. So I want to go ahead and jump right in. But before we do, I also just want to thank you all for taking the time to be here with us. We're excited to kick off. So a few very quick housekeeping items. Today's webinar will run about 60 minutes. We are recording, so we will be sure to send out the recording. Keep an eye out for that. And we are going to be answering questions as we go through. So I already looked in the chat. There was a couple of test questions. Drop your questions in the Q&A as you have them, and we'll make sure to address those as they come in throughout the presentation today. All right, so what are we going to cover? First and foremost, we are going to discuss the current and the future state of ABM, both ABM as a strategy, but also the technology landscape. And then I'm going to be walking you through the new contact level intent signals from Audience Scope, including a brief product demonstration. And then we're going to be closing out with a discussion on how to actually use contact level intent signals to drive revenue. And we'll be actually leading that discussion from a sales perspective. So we have many different voices joining us. So to quickly introduce myself, hello, I'm Kayla Clark, and I head up the product marketing function here at Influ2. I am joined today by Katie Penner, VP of Sales Development at Influ2, Kevin or KD Dorsey, CRO at Finally and founder of Sales Leadership Accelerator, Davis Potter, CEO at ForgeX, and last but certainly not least, Dmitry Lisitsky, co-founder and CEO here at Influ2. So thank you to all of our speakers also for being here today. It wouldn't be possible without you. So with that, I am going to invite Davis and Dmitry on camera to kick us off with a discussion about the current and the future state of ABM. And Davis, I will let you take it from here.
Thank you so much, Kayla. Dima, good morning, good morning. Hello, everyone. So first off, before we really get into it, we wanted to level set on the history of ABM and a few artifacts behind its maturity and where it stands today. So what's interesting is the term ABM, or account-based marketing. When you think about when that terminology initially launched, it was before Facebook. It was before the iPhone. It was before YouTube. It came out in 2003, which is 22 years ago today. And when you look at ABM and how it's modernized into 2025, undoubtedly, it is a higher ROI driving function or strategy. And we see this in our research at ForgeX. You have 67% of ABM programs are seeing a higher ROI than other marketing programs. But although this is the case, only 52% of organizations have been investing in an ABM program for 1 to 2 years. So with that, Dima, I am really curious to hear more about your journey with ABM and how you were brought into the space.
Yeah, well, my previous company was called Global Logic, and was a large IT services company. And we actually managed, I was a co-founder, and we managed to build a very big services business. It was like 30,000 people at the end of the journey. And I think the business was successful, but what kept me unsettled is the fact that we almost didn't use any marketing to make it successful, right? So we had the marketing team, but frankly, without that team, that business would be pretty much in the same shape. And I had like marketing background, which was very embarrassing to me. And I was thinking, what could we do differently, and what could work for a company like GlobalLogic, where you have sales-driven go-to-market process, like salespeople are main people in that company. How can you actually, how can marketing make a difference, right? And then I visited a conference of demand base back in 2015. This is like this embarrassing picture from that conference. And it was like, and I heard the answer. Actually, I think the idea of account-based marketing as a strategy was pretty much a good answer to like what we were missing back in GlobalLogic times, which is like if you want to sell to an account, to a company, you want marketing team to actually target and go after this company, right? So I think this kind of perfect idea of how you can implement and how can marketing make a difference.
And Dima, I mean, even going back to the concept of ABM, it's funny that you saw this right in 2015 too. The first initial ABM platform or that category launched in 2014. So you were right on the bleeding edge. And when it comes to ABM as a strategy in itself, how had you initially seen that differ versus the historical, let's say, demand waterfall style approach, where you're just targeting thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands, if not millions in some really large organizations, of accounts with a lack of focus and just trying to merely gather as many MQLs as you can, throw them over to the sales team? What about ABM, and how had you initially defined it historically back in 2015, and how are you seeing that evolve in 2025?
Well, I guess I think back then, I think the concept of MQLs was not bad. It worked. You could still run a nurture campaign and against like hundreds or syndication and get some meaningful results with that. But it was, even back then, it was quite clear that if you're enterprise sales motion, you want to focus on specific accounts, and that's what salespeople do, right? So they go and proactively prospect this like huge potential wins, and and that's like there's no MQLs, no like traditional marketing mindset. You really want to focus on 10, 20, 100 accounts, which is like tiny piece of your traditional audience that you would do with traditional marketing. And I think that was kind of a good answer to what we could do.
Yeah, really, really narrowing the focus instead of going broad and then purely trying to bring in as many MQLs or people who hit this individual threshold. And when we look at the technology and how it's evolved, thinking about the initial ABM platforms, how some have continued to add features and new components today. When we think about the precision and ability to capture intent, what are some of the limitations that we've historically seen, and why?
Well, I think that visit of demand-based conference was kind of bittersweet to me, because on one hand, I saw an answer. On the other hand, it was very clear that the technologies that demand-based and other players used back then was not precise enough. So actually, I just pulled the paper right in the conference just to make very simple calculations of what are the chances that with like account level targeting and account level intent, you will hit the right people, right? And obviously, if you target a huge company like Microsoft, like this 150,000 employees, what are the chances you'll be able to target the right individuals that can make a decision and they're actual decision makers? And that was an inspiration for me. And well, it took us 2 more years to figure out to solve the problem. And huge kudos to my co-founder Vova Michalka, who basically came up with a brilliant idea how to technically solve that problem. But yeah, I think the inspiration for founding Influ2 was like, hey, ABM strategy is amazing, but you really want to execute it on the contact level to make it work. So it does not really work on the account level, right? And then there are obvious limitations when it comes to intent. I think the most obvious question is like, okay, there's like intent in this account, but who should I call? And like salespeople would ask like, who are the people I need to connect to in that account to make it work, right?
And it's funny too, because when you think about historically how some of these even the ABM strategies have evolved from where they initially were, when we were thinking about this volume base of how many MQLs can you get, the individual contacts who hit this threshold, throw it over to sales, then the pendulum almost swung completely over to the account side, where it's how can we use engagement signals or maybe some third party intent data to help inform where this entire account is on their buying journey. And then once that account as a whole hits this readiness threshold, then passing that over to the sales team. But where we were missing is that middle ground where it's, yes, understanding the intent and the engagement of an account as a whole is meaningful and an interesting insight, but you still have to understand the contacts. You have the accounts, you have the different business units within each of these accounts if they're large enough, and then you have the buying groups within the business units and the contacts that fall into the buying groups.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
Dima, when thinking about contact level intent, especially on the third party side, because when I think about intent data, historically it's been really at the account level. How are you seeing that change, and especially when thinking about the future of ABM?
Well, I think like anything in ABM should become contact level. Every step in your ABM strategy, you want to understand who in your account is engaging, who is in your account has intent. And by the way, there's no such thing as account journey, because like each buyer has its own journey. So yes, you must have like first like understand like contact level intent, contact level engagement, actually being able to engage people on the contact level, and then know if they're engaging or not. And then design a journey, orchestrate the journey for each individual buyer, not like buying groups or accounts. Obviously, you want to have a bigger picture. So like we don't dismiss buying groups. Obviously, you want to look at the buying group as a whole, right? But then in each buying group, you need to see every buyer, where they are in their journey and how they connect to each other, right? Imagine what the conversations they're having based on what we know about the intent and engagement.
And I completely agree, especially how important being able to build those multi-channel orchestration and campaigns that are deeply personalized to the individual contact level. And when thinking about the impact of AI as well, with things such as zero click, and how we're not able to gather as many, let's say, first party signals if contacts are purely engaging with an AI interface. How does that impact the buying journey? And where does contact level intent play a role?
Yeah, I think it becomes even more important because, yes, I think if you think of how buyer journeys changed, and I think it's not only AI, but also pandemic and overall like changes that we're seeing like in people's life dramatically changes the way buyers approach their problems. And I think buyers, and I think there's a lot of research about this that tells about buyers don't want to engage early in the sales, early in their journey, and they don't want to talk to anyone. They want to do the homework, talk to ChatGPT, and that's where AI comes in. They want to, do research some articles, ask friends before they actually have like the first conversation with a salesperson. And then I think the second important step is like, yes, despite of AI, we are humans and we want to, whenever we are kind of ready to move on, I think we still want to have this human to human conversation before we commit a significant amount of budget, right? But anyway, I think when it comes to buyer's journey, a lot happens before the person appears. And unfortunately, and I think many marketers already witness this, like you see less traffic from search. You have like less bids are increasing, and CPC is increasing, and then obviously you're getting much less and less traffic because a lot of buying process happens outside of search clicks, right? And then, we try to solve the problem. On one hand, like our search intent captures zero-click reality. So basically, if someone searches and reads an AI summary, we will be able to capture this, which is kind of already kind of a huge relief. And second, if a person chatted with ChatGPT or whatever they like, and then ultimately ChatGPT will lead you to web pages. And some of this could be articles, some of this could be some relevant content that explains you more about the topic. Then this is a contact level intent that is content intent that we can actually capture as well. So again, like we try to capture any intent signal possible through search intent, even if it's zero-click, and also on the content intent where people just read different articles on the internet. But again, like very important, you need to know who is doing this research, who is reading this content, who is searching, the name of this person. This is very critical. And that's where we were focused when we developed our technology.
So we're really able to now actually see the individual on the contact level versus just merely understanding what someone from an account is searching, and then actually be able to use the insights from what they're searching, what their conversations are, tie that back to the contact, map back multiple contacts within that business unit or within that account, and then be able to start to uncover, all right, maybe since there are some commonalities behind all these contacts, they're probably part of an active buying group. And it's interesting too, especially on the personalization side, and being able to translate the insights in real time, share them with your marketing team, your sales team, maybe customer success as well, and help that to actually impact your campaigns. And I'm curious to hear more about your perspective on this, especially with the contact level intent, because personalization, I think everyone on the webinar today and listening to the recording deeply understands that you have to be personalized in the way in which you sell and market today. It's table stakes. And what are some of the, with this contact level intent, how do you see that impacting campaigns and the way in which we can make adjustments on the fly?
Well, I think personalization is kind of fun topic because we actually, it created a lot of, I would say, friction for us early when we launched Influ 2 with advertising capabilities. And I think the reason is like personalization comes from the world of email or nurture campaigns, right? So I think the aha moment for marketers was, hey, if you instead of sending the same email to everyone, you try to, to make it personal. You can put a name of this person in this email. You can personalize it in all possible ways. It's better. You have better open rates. You have like better conversions. And then I think marketers came to advertising and basically kind of try to influence even sales development process with their perspective on this with the same template. And the funny thing is like personalization, it turned out actually personalization is not about knowing who you're engaging, right? Well, yes, you want to know who you're engaging because you can be relevant, right? But I think you need to make one step further. And instead of trying to call your prospect saying, hey, I know you searched for, that thing, like say ABM tools yesterday, let's talk. I don't think this kind of personalization will be appreciated, right? I think it's creepy and most people say, no, I never did it. So I think personalization is about like, yes, you know who is engaging or who has intent, and then you know what this intent was about, like what keywords or what topic was interesting for this person. And then you, instead of trying to to point to the fact that you know about this, you try to build conversation around, hey, let's talk about this topic. So you need to be smart about it, but yes, I think its relevance is more important than personalization. That's basically our idea. And I think this is especially important for, like, there's a lot of AI sales development effort, like, or AI automation around sales development process, where you can, hey, we can scale our program with different AI tools to like unimaginable scale, because you can basically send thousands of emails every day, and it's going to be personalized. But AI, just like human, like, it's not smart enough, like, just to make a decision what to personalize about. You need to like get this information from somewhere, right? So what is interesting for this person? What matters? And what matters is about contact level intent, contact level engagements.
I love relevance versus personalization. And another thing that this made me think of too is we're almost able to get these, be a little more proactive in terms of getting these triggers, so to speak, or this contact level intent before even picking up, let's say, first party engagement signals on our site, or interacting with something, whether it's they downloaded something on our website, or they attended a webinar. We can now see and uncover at the contact level these triggers. And Dima, I'm interested as well to hear your perspective on these almost contact level intent signals, how they can be leveraged in real time. So let's say, for example, we're seeing some contact level intent within an account that's part of our target account list. What would be the next step for an ABM leader, or even someone on the sales side with some of that information?
I think here we need to break a template that people followed so far. And the problem is, like, when you have account level intent, you kind of try to wait until there's a lot of intent, right? So you want to, if you use account level intent, you have to have a lot of information showing, hey, there's something happening in that account. Then now we kind of safe to pass this account to your sales team, and then they will try to figure out what to do with it next. I think with contact level intent, it's a huge difference now, because you want to act on this immediately, right? You don't want to, and because, like, what we learn from advertising, and what whole behavioral marketing theory talks about is the fact that people, this impulse of intent, this interest, is a very short thing, right? So basically, you have really short time frame to act on this. And basically, yes, I think the best thing is to, instead of trying to warm up an account and then pass them to salespeople, you want to work in parallel, and you want to listen to your buying groups, listen to your prospects, and then pass this information to sales team, and then they can basically personalize or make their outreach relevant while you're trying to get more signals and while trying to sell, and that goes in parallel. And yeah, I think that's going to be amazing. I think Kayla will show exactly how it might work.
Hey, Kayla.
Hey, that's a perfect prompt to actually get in and show these new signals. So Davis and Dimitri, thank you so much. That discussion, I think, gives us really the perfect foundation to really dig into the product itself. So we appreciate your time, and thank you for leading us through that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So I mentioned earlier today that it is the official release of Audience Scope from Influ2, introducing for the very first time true contact level intent signals across third-party content, search, and social. And I'm going to break each of those down for you in just a moment, but I just want to level set us again and kind of tie this back to the conversation that Davis and Dima just led us through. The true difference between the ABM intent you may already be familiar with and the contact level intent signals that are now available through Audience Scope is that we are not providing vague signals that someone at an account might be showing interest. And we're also not trying to guess who might be showing interest based on their title, maybe persona, or even geographic location. We're telling you exactly who is showing the intent, where, and what they're interested in so that you know exactly who to target and what to say to capture their interest. Because as we just discussed, relevancy is no longer optional. It's what our buyers expect from us. So no more guesswork, no more wasted resources on contacts that just aren't engaged or currently interested in. What we are offering is really unique, and I'll call out some of the differences that really make this come to life as we go through each individual signal. So I want to start with content intent because this is probably most aligned with the ABM intent that you're familiar with today. Except again, what we're doing is showing you exactly who is behind the signal by name. Content intent detects when your target buyers are consuming relevant content across the web. And we're actually telling you who is consuming the content, on what website, and what topic they are reading about, so that you have the specificity to know who you should reach out to, and you can tailor your outreach to ensure that the topic aligns with their interest. As Dima mentioned during the discussion, your buying journey starts early, and oftentimes buyers are reading about particular topics online before they're actually filling out forms and engaging with companies. So it's an extremely important piece of that buying journey to be able to detect. Next is search intent, and this detects when buyers are actually online conducting searches about relevant topics. So this could include searching your company by name. It could be competitor names or even products or categories that align with your company offerings. And again, in the discussion that Davis and Dimitri just led us through, we talked about this shift to this zero-click search reality due to the introduction of AI. So what makes this unique is we are not relying on folks to actually click through to a website. We're detecting this intent signal at the search stage. I don't know about you all, but personally now, anytime I'm conducting a search, I usually stop at the AI summary. It usually gives me what I need, and I don't actually find myself clicking into the source articles. There's also lots of articles that have been published about businesses that are seeing this drastic decline in their web traffic and what that has done to their leads, their MQLs. So normally this type of signal would go unseen, but we will again flag this signal at the search level, which allows you to get to your buyers first because you're getting them to them before your competition. But I think what's most important is it also allows you to act fast. There was a question in the chat a moment ago about how quickly you should follow up on signals, and the intent signals are most powerful when they're acted on quickly. I know that sometimes I'm really zeroed in and interested in something, and then my to-do list in the day just kind of shifts me away from that. So the power of detecting search intent is not only just reaching them earlier in their journey, but also the ability to reach them fast while that interest is still top of mind for them. And then finally, Audience Scope also includes social intent, which surfaces relevant social posts. So for example, there may be, in this example, someone on LinkedIn that is in market for a new technology platform, and they're doing their own research, but they are more interested in soliciting firsthand feedback from their network on LinkedIn. We know that there is a lot of noise on social media, but there's also a lot of valuable information there about our buyers. And it would be nearly impossible to manually scroll and track all of this information about your buyers on an ongoing basis. And it's also not valuable to be flooded with a ton of engagement signals, likes, comments on posts that don't mean anything, posts about the weather or, a conversation that has nothing to do with your business. So what makes Audience Scope unique in this case is we use AI to only surface posts that are relevant and aligned to the topics that matter to you and to your business, so that you can trust the information you're seeing, the signal you're getting is worth seeing and worth acting on. So with that, I'm going to jump into a quick product demonstration. And I'm going to start the tour today in Signal Center. Signal Center is also a newer enhancement to Influ 2 that we released earlier in September. And the idea behind Signal Center is what brings these audience scope contact level intent signals to life. You could be the best marketer in the world and uncover the strongest buyer signals, but if you just pitch those signals over the fence to your sales team, and they're never acted on, or nobody's actually using the signals, then all of that effort falls flat. So the buyer signals, the intent signals, they need to be specific, they need to be contact level, but they also need to be displayed in a way that makes them super easy to act on. So what you're seeing in the Signal Center feed is essentially where all of the signals I just talked about come to life in Influ 2. And they surface in this feed in the order in which they occur. And there's a couple of things that I'll call out here. You'll notice that we're not saying Martha searched for a topic and leaving it at that. We are saying, hey, here's the signal. In this case, in this example, she searched for 6 cents. We're also using AI to summarize what that means. So we're adding additional context about what the signal means, and we're summarizing what the interest is, what the topic of interest is based on the signal itself. So no general lead scores or numbers that don't really mean anything to your sales teams. We're displaying them in a way that just makes it super easy to understand and consume. You'll also see that while these signals are contact level, we still group signals by buying group. So Dimitri and Davis also talked about the importance of that buying group insight because teams talk and buying processes are complex. As much as we all wish there was one buyer, one champion, we know that getting a deal over the finish line often involves lots of different people. So what also makes this unique is, again, you're not just getting the contact level insight, but we're grouping automatically contact level signals at the buying group level. So you can quickly see Stella's individual signal, but we're also grouping other members of her buying group so that in a quick glance, you get a full rounded view of what's going on with that buying group. In the Signal Center feed, you can sort by signal type. So if I click on content intent to tie it back to the signal descriptions I just walked you through, an example of how this comes to light in Influ 2 is we'll show you Michael Cunnings was checking out content on influ2.com. We summarize the topic of interest, so what was he reading about, but we'll also tell you how many times he checked this out in the day, because as you get more content signals in your feed, if you start to see Michael, this number maybe was 3, but next week maybe he checked it out 10 times, probably an indicator of his interest going up over time. So it gives you a good foundation to gauge intent and interest as time goes on. Search intent, again, you'll see the keyword that they are searching for. And again, it doesn't rely on a click through to the site. We will summarize the topic based on whatever keyword they were searching for. And from this signal, you can actually click in to learn more. So I'm going to click into Chuck Nickel and call a few things out here, because when I started this demo, I talked about how the signal can be really strong, but you need information. You need to be able to consume, understand, and also act on the signal. And that's what you're seeing on screen. So you're not only seeing the most recent search signal in this case, but we see a full history of Chuck's recent intent signals. We see members of his buying group here, but there's some other information that is populated automatically in Signal Center. We're automatically pulling in information about his company. So Chuck works at TechStrata. We're going to summarize here what that company does. We're also summarizing Chuck's interest based on all of his recent signals. We're summarizing the buying group interests automatically based on recent signals. We're also pulling in information from the CRM. So if there was recent opportunities that were opened or won, we're tracking recent outreach. I can also click directly into his LinkedIn profile from here. So again, Everything is at your fingertips. It includes the strong contact level intent signals that we just talked about that give you that contact level clarity, while rounding out your understanding of the account and the buying group by surfacing all of that information in one place. And to close us out, now that we've talked about the state of ABM, we've taken a look at the new audience scope signals, let's talk about how we can actually use these signals to drive revenue. And to do that, we are in great hands. I'm going to introduce Katie Penner and KD Dorsey to close us out and walk us through this conversation. Katie and KD, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Kayla. Hi, everyone. I am so excited to be here today to chat through how to turn intent signals into revenue with the legend KD, Kevin Dorsey. Now, I could spend a lifetime listing out Katie's accolades, but I'll just say this. If you've ever scrolled LinkedIn and thought, wow, that's the best sales advice that I've read all week, it was probably KD. He's here to help me dig into the big question of, when buyers are giving off signals across third-party content, search, and social, how do you capture those moments and actually turn them into meetings, pipeline, and revenue? KD, are you excited to dive in with me?
Oh, I'm fired up. It was probably one of the fastest responses when you hit me up, like, want to do a webinar? Yes, let's go. Don't even need to know what we're talking about. I'm in. And so no, very excited to get in here because I think this is a important topic, but I think a very misunderstood and I'll say poorly executed topic. So I'm really excited for this.
Awesome. Okay, I am so excited to dig in with you, but I'm going to quickly set the stage first. So intent data sounds like this silver bullet, but here's the truth. Intent on its own doesn't pay the bills. Why? Because most intent lives at the account level. So think about it. If all you know is someone at Acme clicked on a topic, how is a seller supposed to know who to call, what to say, or if it even matters, right? That's a guessing game, not a revenue driver. And buyers don't care if a signal comes from marketing or sales. They don't care about our internal silos. They only care about one thing. Is this relevant to me right now? But when marketing hands off vague account level intent, sales looks at it and crickets, nothing. It's too vague to act on. Katie, you've probably seen this play out when a rep gets told someone at big enterprise account clicked on ABM with no name and no context. What happens next?
I mean, it's a constant game of which is worse. Either the one thing that happens is they do nothing, right? They get the information, they're like, what am I supposed to do with this? And so they do nothing because they don't know where to go with it. They don't know how to leverage it. They don't know where to go next, which is one bucket. Or the other bucket is they actually do something with it that is inaccurate, right? What I see happen so often is like they treat an account and they assume they know the person it was. Oh, that had to have been KP. That had to have been like, and so then they use that intent and apply it to someone that maybe wasn't actually doing it. And so in my opinion, it's like, which is worse, either not doing anything or taking that intent and then applying it to a person that wasn't actually doing it, or saying, hey, KP, I saw someone at your company was looking into us. Thought that was a good reason to reach out. And you're like, what are you doing right now? And so it's a game a little bit of like sometimes they do nothing, which is bad, but sometimes they also leverage it the wrong way so they don't get a return and it actually can burn that bridge at that account that they were trying to get into.
Yeah, that burn is a great call out. If we move to the next slide, what you said is exactly right. Without alignment, this intent equals noise, right? But when sales and marketing align around contact level signals, seeing the person who is reading about or search for ABM attribution, who posted about pipeline visibility, everything changes. Sellers know exactly who leaned in, what they care about, and when to reach out. And that's the difference. With alignment, intent equals pipeline, and that's the shift that we're going to unpack today. So how do you actually make that shift from vague account intent to revenue driving signals? And it comes down to four things, right? The first is shared definitions. Everyone, marketing, SDRs, sales, needs the same understanding of what a signal means, whether it's third-party content, search, social. No more lost in translation handoffs. Second, context. A signal isn't just data, it's meaning. They searched attribution means measurement is a priority. They read ABM content means they're exploring strategy. Context is what's going to turn a click or a keyword into a conversation starter. 3, pre-mapped plays. So outreach paths tied to each signal type, including snippets, sequences, talk tracks, are crucial so that reps can move fast instead of reinventing the wheel. And then 4, finally, a feedback loop. So when a rep is booking a meeting or gets ignored, that outcome feeds back to marketing, targeting sharpens, sequences improve, and the whole system is getting smarter every cycle. When you put those 4 together, intent stops being noise and becomes a repeatable pipeline engine. Now, Katie, I want to bring you in here. You've taught thousands of reps how to structure great outreach that breaks through the noise. So walk us through your email framework, because even with the best signals, if the follow-up flops, the revenue never shows up.
Absolutely. So the framework that I teach is KPICC, and this applies to emails. This also applies to voicemails. This also applies to social messages. This also applies to video. So it's the framework of how to create succinct, relevant messaging as you reach out to people. And it stands for know, problem, impact, connect the dots, call to agreement. I'm going to break each one of those down. So the K stands for know. And so know means, what do you know about this person, company, or persona? Now, persona is the last element, right? This implies you're not personalizing it. But even if you're not doing personalization, it's what do you know about this persona? If it's a VP of finance or a CISO or a VP of HR, like, what do you know about the persona? You want to lead with what you know about them, because that's also what's going to drive the open and have the curiosity built in. And that's what makes signal-based prospecting. I don't know if I've ever said that as a phrase, signal-based prospecting. That's a fun phrase. I'm gonna check mark that one. Is the K gets stronger because what I know about you is so much more specific. So it starts with what you know about them. Then you move to the P, which is problems. What are the common problems that that persona, that company, that individual could be dealing with, and the impact of those problems? What does it cause, right? And so even if we're talking about signal-based, prospecting, is like, hey, I know a lot of times signals are just at the account level, which causes either broad outreach, vague outreach, or poor results from any type of reaches, which is lower pipeline, etc. That's problem and impact put together. Then we get to the first C, which is then connect the dots. Why am I reaching out? Like, what do I have to bring to the table right now in this conversation? So we're connecting it back to us, right? In some way, like, here's why we maybe should call them, be in touch. And then the last C is CTA, but it's call to agreement. Too often we go for call to action, and almost always sellers, I'm talking to you, we're always immediately asking for the meeting. What do we want? We want a meeting. We want a meeting. We want a meeting. Oftentimes you want agreement first, and this is why the K is so important. So if I know someone was consuming information, that's a different call to agreement than someone who is checking out pricing. Y'all follow me here? Like, this is a very important nuance of, if I know they were reading because they're learning, then my call to agreement should actually be a little bit closer to reading and learning more. If I know they were engaged in a freemium trial, well, then my call to agreement is, let's walk you through some of the features maybe you don't have access to. So the last C has to connect back to that first K of, what do I know about them? But I'm looking for agreement first. Is this even top of mind? Have you noticed this? Did you know? Right. So this is just a quick tip on this. If someone's reading, this is what I love about what Influ is doing here, is if I know someone's trying to learn about a topic, I can teach them something new. And that call to agreement could actually be, actually, did you know about this article that came out? Actually, have you read this one? I'm happy to send over a summary. Now I'm providing value that keeps them on that journey. So this is KPICC, no problem, impact, connect the dots, call to agreement. It works in emails, voicemails, video, etc. And it allows you to score your own emails, because a lot of emails don't have these letters. It is nothing about them, so there's no. The P is product, it's not problem. The I isn't impact, it's individual. I'm talking about things. And then the C's are call to action. This is the framework, y'all, and you can see how this plays out with signals.
I love this framework. I think it really helps with earning the right to even ask for time. So I appreciate you breaking that down for us. And I want to take it even a step further and dive into specific examples. So let's start with content intent. So say Melinda, VP of Sales at SureScripts, engages with ABM content, and we see from Influ2 that they are interested in optimizing LinkedIn ad performance. Katie, quickly walk us through the play here.
Right. So if we look at this, we know they checked out content on Forbes, right? So what do y'all notice in that very first sentence of the email? It's dropping Forbes, right? ABM is what they're looking for. Within the first four words of this email, we're mentioning ABM. So these are strong hooks to get the email even opened, right? So that K is very strong. Now notice it doesn't say, hey, Melinda, I know you were reading articles on Forbes. That's called creepy. Let's not go that far, right? We're leading with what we know about them and their persona. So this is very strong. But then notice how it comes all the way through. The reality, deals don't happen at the account level. They happen when the right people lean in. So deals not happen at the right level is a good example of like a problem, right? That this is the problem here, right? That we are identifying. Then we get to the connect the dots. This is where Influ2 helps. We surface contact levels, right? So sales isn't guessing, right? What happens is ABM something you're doubling down on right now? Call to agreement before call to action, right? So this is a very good example of how to very succinctly send a quick email based off what we're seeing. And there's even places we could even add to this a little bit, right? If we know they're optimizing LinkedIn, we could have maybe had that sprinkled in somewhere too as an extra hook in this. But this would be an example of how to use the content to something like this and lean into it.
Love it. All right, let's move on to our search intent. Now, everything Influ2 does is unique and far more reliable than anything else on the market, but our search intent capabilities are pretty mind-blowing. Katie, your reaction on the webinar planning call said it all. We can detect the actual keywords a buyer is searching, even if they never make it past an AI summary. So instead of a vague search score, Melinda from SureScripts just researched a competitor and indicated that she's evaluating other ABM vendors. That's not noise, that's context you can act on. Katie, walk me through the play here.
Well, I mean, and that's what changed everything is it makes the no, aka the K, real. When they explained this to me, y'all, like they explained it like, oh yeah, even if they don't click on anything, we know what they were looking for. Then they moved on to the next topic. And I was like, no, 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 hold on. Back that up. Say that again. Because as y'all know, the click list searches are skyrocketing. People search for something, they get the summary, and they're like, all right, I got what I needed. So we never get to capture it anymore. So the fact that they can get this changes everything because now, again, I know what they were searching for, even if they didn't click on it. So whether it's a competitor, a feature, a term, a brand, like all of that. So you can see what we did here. Most ABM platform shops stop at the account level, which is why teams struggle to turn intent into real pipeline. There we go. We've got our problem and impact. Then we have our connected dots, signals tied to people, which is very strong. And then this one has a little bit more juice to it. It's why our customers see higher conversion, right? And I love this CTA. Is this kind of visibility something you'd want from an ABM platform? Is such a great curiosity builder in a question versus anything there. So this one again too, what's valuable is if you know what Sixth Sense does and what you do differently, that's how you weave it into the messaging to build that curiosity. And so even this one doesn't have it, but a great subject line on this could be Sixth Sense versus.
Mm.
Do you know this about Sixth Sense? Sixth Sense doesn't have this. Those are little things that you could put into the messaging to make it stronger. But this is one of the most unique things of like, they didn't even click on anything. We know what they were looking for and we can use it.
Yeah, I love that you call that out, that this call to agreement really challenges the status quo. And I think that that is probably one of the most effective things that you can do for that step. So moving on, let's tackle finally social. So we're not surfacing random likes or drive-by comments because likes and emojis don't create pipeline, y'all. We surface their relevant posts aligned to the topics that you care about so that reps can engage with the right context. Here we see Melinda posted about aligning marketing goals with growth metrics and balancing short-term success. Katie, question for you. When reps see a social post signal like this, what's the right next step versus the mistakes that you see a lot of teams making with social signals?
Oh boy, we don't have enough time to go into all the mistakes on social signals, but like we have to make sure that we understand the difference between intent and interest. And I think at its core, this is where a lot of people go wrong with social is they see the social intent and they immediately think, oh, that's interest. And so then they go too fast and too aggressive, or, and Katie, I'm sure you get these, they engage with all the people that were on the post of, hey, saw you're on KP's post about marketing growth, right? We're a marketing growth company. We should talk. And it's like, whoa, like, hold on. Again, that too much, too fast there, right? And so
Yeah.
what has to happen here is again the relevancy. The relevancy is crucial. And I don't know how to phrase this perfectly, but it's like, you have to know when to shoot your shot. And
Yes.
too often, I think reps see a post that's like maybe a stretch. Maybe it's over here, and they're like, "Oh, that was it. Okay, I'm in." You only get to really shoot that shot once or twice. And so you want to make sure that it is really strong or you're combining social intent. Whereas like there's multiple factors you can discuss here. But this is always a great opener of like, saw your post about aligning marketing goals with growth. Right? Like I saw your post balancing short-term wins and long-term strategy and how it isn't always easy. We're contextualizing like, okay, we saw it, but also we're providing some insight on it a little bit. Not just, I saw your post, we solved it. Now we're at a problem. One challenge we often hear, it's hard to prove which activities. And what I love about this is, especially sales leaders and marketing leaders, they want to prove things work, right? And intent is a tough one. Attribution is a tough one. So how do we prove this is working? So I love that. That actually drives pipeline, especially at the contact level. Curious, do you think more visibility into who's engaging could help bridge the gap? This gets me thinking around this, right? And so what I love about this is we're taking the post, aligning goals, metrics with short-term success, and then we're leaning that language in onto our messaging here to really bring it together. So I think on the wrong side, it's using intent as interest, is doing the cut and paste I saw you engaged with, is going right into like a pitch because of it versus connecting it all the way through and ending with a really strong call to agreement.
Couldn't agree more. Awesome. Katie, thank you so much for sharing those plays and breaking all of this down for us. Amazing insights as always. Also, I appreciate that you changed my initials to KP so we wouldn't get confused throughout that.
Yeah.
Now, I know everyone listening is walking away with tactics that they can use and implement. And with that, I'm going to hand it back to you, Kayla, to wrap us up.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Katie and KD. That was such a fun and very practical conversation. I hope everybody enjoyed that and is walking away with some easy tips and tricks that you can implement. This hour flew by, so I just want to thank our wonderful speakers for joining us and conducting such thoughtful conversations today. To all of our attendees, thank you so much. We really appreciate you taking the time to be here. There is a QR code on screen that you can scan to check out a couple of resources about what is new at Influ2, including Audience Scope and Signal Center that we released a few weeks ago. I mentioned we will be sending out the recording, so please keep an eye on that. We still have questions coming in the Q&A chat, so we're going to do our best to answer those. But if you do not get a response, please reach out to our sales team. We'll go through and make sure we're connecting with each of you. So those of you who did take time to submit a question, thank you so much. And with that, I will close us out for the day. Thanks, everybody.